So you've recently finished the Alabasta Saga, which covers chapters 101 to 217. So did you prefer the first or second saga of One Piece?
I think I preferred the second saga. The first saga was great because it introduced the kind of main characters, but I think there were long, kind of extended fight sequences that seemed to go on forever in the first saga, whereas this felt like there was more kind of variety in the fight sequences and more storytelling within each of the parts of it. It's almost like, the storytelling was getting better, I think. The second saga, I think, I've enjoyed it more. As I say, the first saga is interesting because of character introductions, and you're getting used to the core crew, if you like. The second one felt like it was building it out into more of a story and more of an adventure as well. So it felt like a better storytelling, whereas the first one just felt like there were some very long extended fight sequences that I think last time we talked about it, I was sort of saying that the thing with Kuro and the island where they're stopping all these pirates from getting onto the island, just felt like that went on forever. And same with the Don Krieg stuff that cut out in the TV series. Those seemed to feel like they went on forever in that first season. Although, to be fair, in the TV series, Buggy the Clown felt like that went on forever for some reason as well. But anyway, the storytelling, definitely, there was more variety in there. Maybe because you've got more crew, you're getting more interesting fights because they're all getting something to do. Sort of. Although there does seem to be this trope of trapping Luffy sort of somewhere where he can't fight, so the others get to have a go, I think. But yeah, it was just there was more variety to it, more adventure, more storytelling.
Okay, so who was your favorite character introduced in this saga?
I think it was Tony Chopper.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think it was because he's quite a different character to everybody else on the crew, and it's the whole thing of the sort of animal side of him, the fact he's got all those different forms to him. Being the Doctor, he's almost if he was an American cartoon, he would be the comedy sidekick, but he's not the comedy sidekick. He's a bit more than that because they're all comedy sidekicks. It feels. I think I really love his design. He's a really sort of cool design. I love the hat with the antlers, the whole kind of cross on him, and then the different forms that he takes. I think are really, really great. So yeah, just a really interesting character. Rather than just having another human character on the crew. And his introduction was interesting as well. Him and Dr. Kuroha, it's feels like some sort of Scandinavian witch. You're sort of descending the sleigh with a reindeer. It's sort of got that kind of Scandinavian folklore kind of feel to it. And it just, so initially that's all I thought it was, and then it sort of built, so you thought he was a reindeer. You thought he was just sort of some part of the Doctor's kind of witchiness. And then it kind of develops further, and then you get the whole backstory, and he becomes the Frankenstein monster shunned by the villagers, and then sort of dedicates himself to medicine and all of that. Just it's all a really interesting backstory for ultimately what's quite a cute character. So yeah, I think he's one of the most interesting characters that have been introduced. Obviously, he develops further and further, and obviously becomes more into the role of the Doctor, but also kind of like, person they kind of rally around a little bit more as well, as a crew. It's interesting because you've obviously got all the different dynamics. Everyone seems to like Chopper, whereas within them, they've always got all the characters have got something about them where there's an anonymity there between them, but everyone seems to like Chopper, which is useful for the Doctor, I guess. So anyway, most interesting character I think they've got introduced, and definitely I like his design, I like his backstory, I like how they developed the character.
Yeah. So which island story was your favorite?
I think the Alabasta one is also the longer story. It was more epic as well. The other previous islands felt like they were short stories almost, sort of introducing, this is the jungle one, this is the snow one, and then and Alabasta felt like it was like on the desert one, but it was like the epic of desert one where there's rebellion and there's oppressed population and there's a intrigue with the court, and then there's the whole kind of pseudo sort of spy kind of Baroque works gang as well. All of that sort of made it feel like a more epic kind of story. I like the way they built up the Baroque work stuff over time as well. That's that had that kind of 60s spy kind of feel to it. So all the characters felt like they were, so from 60s sort of spy things like The Prisoner or the Avengers, the 60s Avengers with Steed and Mrs. Peel, so it's like Mrs. Peel, Mrs. Wednesday. It was all that kind of, there was a sort of resurgence in the late 90s, and you had your Austin Powers stuff happening as well. So it felt like it had that kind of spy kind of feel to it. And then the Alabasta thing sort of developed into Crocodile being your kind of cliche James Bond type boss with the casino spy base with the alligator or the shark pit or the alligator pit or that you always had in the sort of James Bond film in the 60s. So it felt like it had that epic sort of filmic sweep to it. I'd be interested to see what they do with the TV series when they get to it.
Which island's ending was your favorite?
I think the Alabasta one again. I mean, I like the Drum Island. The whole kind of fake sort of chasing Tony Chopper out from Dr. Kura, to get him to go with the crew. That was quite a nice bit, but I preferred that whole thing of the feeling of after this sort of epic thing, the whole rebuilding, the going back to the Oasis and sort of rebuilding that. And then that kind of thing of going, generally I thought, oh, okay, is Vivi going to become a new crew member? And having that whole bait and switch of like, she's done everything she can for the kingdom and she's staying and she's going to basically make the kingdom work. And you kind of think, oh yeah, that kind of makes more sense. And then the whole thing of Nico Robin turning up and you just go, what? How did that happen? So yes, like that I think I like that ending. I like that sort of sudden sort of change in dynamic. So yeah, that ending.
Yeah. So what did you think of Vivi?
Again, it's that thing of obviously she was part of the Baroque works, so she was a sort of dynamic kind of character from the beginning. Then she became the sort of almost the Princess Leia, I've got to help my kingdom, but she's still the strong character, and so she came across as really character. In fact, it is that thing of almost she became a part of the crew, and you felt like she was going to be a part of the crew, and that's why by the end you thought she was going to join the crew. So yeah, that kind of turnaround where, she didn't do it was a surprise because she'd been so much as part of that story. She'd been almost a part of the Straw Hat Gang. But yeah, it came across. It should be a great character when they put it into the TV series. I hope it's a great character. It is that thing of she's a kick-ass kind of spy woman or girl that sort of can hold her own and is good in a fight and has got a sort of a cause and all the rest of it. So again, a kind of good character development, good story. I really liked her. She's one of those characters you want to see again. There's so many characters that sort of pop up and you think, oh yeah, they're interesting, but will I see them again? It's like, Dr. Kurohara is an interesting character and it's like, it'd be interesting to see if she turns up again. Whereas throughout this, you've got other characters like, Hina in the Marines who just felt so underwhelming in terms of, they're there, but they didn't seem to have much to do other than barricade the island to stop the pirates from escaping. But it's kind of like, didn't really make sense why she was introduced. And again, maybe it's just because later and I haven't got there yet, But there's been a load of characters that get introduced that are almost throwaway, and then you've got people like Tony Chopper and Vivi who have become really well developed characters, and Dr. Kurohara who is an interesting character that you want to see more of.
So who is your favorite villain in Baroque works?
Number 2.
Yeah,
interesting character in that the introduction of him when he first meets the pirates, they leave as friends. And then it's like, then these are the guys I should be trying to kill, because obviously I think he's meant to be killing number 3 because number 3's failed, and so he's not hunting the Straw Hat Gang at that point. And then the whole kind of, again, it's that spy paranoia thing, because he can change his face or can change himself to be anybody. So you then have that paranoia of knowing who they are, and then they do the whole thing with the bandage on the arm, which I thought was really cleverly done. So you think, yeah, of course. And then obviously the even bigger twist of like he'd noticed the bandage in the fight, and yet there was that extra level where they put the cross on the arm. So underneath the bandage was hiding the actual thing that differentiated them from doppelgangers. So again, really nice touch. Yeah, number 2, anyway, just an interesting character. It's one of those things of the moral ambiguity of whose side is he on, and again, it's that thing of him changing sides at the end. and being friends with the Straw Hat Gang, which makes him more interesting, I think, than just another fight. So yeah, the story arc was great on him, and he's that kind of wild, chaotic character as well that you get through like the Riddler or the Joker in the Batman thing. It's that what's he going to do, and he's annoying to the point where he annoys even the other numbers and the days of the week. I think he was much more interesting in number 3 with his candle power and the whole, again, slightly bizarre Bond thing of trapping them in wax under a giant wax fountain, which I just found a little bit ridiculous.
Well, it's in the live action. There's pictures of the set.
Is it? Well, I'm sure they're going to sort of do it, but it was just that thing of going, oh, for goodness sakes. Maybe they'll do it to a point where I just think, oh yeah, okay, they've done that well. But yeah, just the whole wax mist thing, just, yeah. The most interesting thing about, I think, was almost like they're having all these fights and all, and Sanjay's wandering around getting lost and finding dinosaurs and finds his base and confuses Crocodile. And so Crocodile thinks that Luffy's dead. Number 2 is definitely a much more interesting character. Number 3 is an interesting character, but not as interesting as number 2, I don't think.
So what do you think of Nico Robin?
Yeah, well, actually, didn't know her as a Nico Robin. They developed her as an interesting, intriguing character because it is that thing of, she's the second in command, and so she's going to be dangerous because all of the days of the week characters that sort of based on, they're all kind of dangerous characters. But then she does that thing of helping them out, or seemingly helping them out at one point, and you just kind of go, oh, okay, what's going on there? And then you have that thing of somebody recognized her, and one of the Marine people recognized her, and you just kind of went, all right, so there's something else happening there as well. So it's that thing of, she's one of those, a morally ambiguous character, which is interesting because all the kind of crew, what their motivations are, and yet you're not sure what her motivations are. And you probably know what they are because you've read all of it, so you know what's happened. But so she's that moral ambiguity is interesting, and there's obviously something else happening there. So you're kind of thinking, oh, is she actually working for the Marines? You get the sense that she's not necessarily a bad guy, but could be. And again, it's this whole thing because it feels like it is the spy-based thing of agents and double agents and triple agents. So although she's the number 2 in the organization, she may not be all that she seems, and she isn't, as it turns out. Again, a really interesting character and really interesting development. So it's going to be interesting to see where they go, because she's obviously now part of the crew, and to see what happens.
So what did you think of Crocodile?
Crocodile was, he's like the big bad boss, but he's a classic sort of, James Bond kind of boss, as I said, with his sort of casino and, the shark pit. It felt like it was that thing of, what the bosses have been. Almost like, Don Krieg, that there's these huge characters that seem like they're impossible to defeat at any point, and it takes an agent a day to find the weakness and then defeat them. For me, he wasn't as interesting as his sidekick or his sidekicks. His sidekicks were more interesting than he was. So he was almost interesting in the fact that he had all these people working for him more than anything else, I think. He kind of had the classic take over the world and create a utopia, and all the kind of classic sort of spy James Bond style, reasons for doing what they do, which kind of make no sense in any way, shape or form in terms of as a motivation. But there it is. It's a classic cliche. It's almost like you needed it to have the journey.
What did you think of Dory and Broggy?
Oh, it was interesting interlude. I guess it served purpose as a backdrop to the Baroque works things. I mean, it was sort of based on sort of myth and folklore. The 2 giants fighting, forever, and obviously being on an island with dinosaurs, that suggests, they'd been fighting for a very long time. I know it's something like 100 years or something, but it's sort of. Again, it's that thing of, it was interesting. It felt more like a folklore, mythical kind of thing, sort of as a backdrop to the spy. So it kind of felt contradictory. But the ending kind of message, if you like, or the backstory, where you just realize it's the arguments over something quite trivial, and the 2 kind of ridges, if you like, or mountains, are actually the 2 beasts that they've sort of caught, that they were arguing over. And so it's like they've been fighting for 100 years over something trivial, and that didn't really matter. That just sums up a lot of this world, to be honest. that part of it I thought it was quite nice, and they're kind of fun kind of characters. But as a backdrop to the whole Baroque works thing, just I didn't enjoy that island as much. Yeah, I mean, it's weird because it's also leading up to that was obviously the whole getting to the Grand Line and Smoker, the Marines, kind of a background character again, or it's almost like the Django one pages tell more of the story of the Marines than you see of Smoker and I've forgotten his lieutenant, the short cycle Hashiki, is it? It's you kind of get introduced to them, but again, they're there conveniently for the Alabasta bit at the end as a kind of group. But Smokers sort of disappears, and and Hina comes in, and you're just kind of going, what's going on? What's going on with the Marines? Maybe that I will find out a bit more later. But they feel incidental, obviously, because I guess it's all about Baroque works more. And then the whale, the whale at the beginning as well. Jonah and the whale, it's all that kind of thing of being inside, trapped inside the whale. But I kind of like the whole, something that could be sort of a little bit dark and depressing, and it becomes optimistic again. So nice ending to that story as well. So lots of little stories in there as well. I guess then that's the first time I come across Vivi as Miss Wednesday. Overall, as I say, generally, I thought it's a really good batch of stories. I mean, how did you feel about the Guard 9?
I was more asking about the giants, just the implications more than what actually happened.
Right. I mean, the whole giant thing is, there's sort of Welsh folklore, there's like old Aramaic, I think, or Hebrew sort of, giants fighting. I think there's some Irish giants as well. That there's always tales of these giant, sort of either brothers or friends that have been fighting for centuries. So there are plenty of myths out there for that kind of thing. And I just love the whole kind of trivial part of it. So from that point of view, that's kind of interesting. I just love the triviality of fighting for 100 years over something trivial.
So what would you rate the Alabasta Saga out of 10?
Oh, I think it's a good 8. Yeah, good 8 out of 10. Maybe 8.5.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. When it got to the Alabasta stuff, it gripped me enough that I wanted to keep reading, and it reminded me of the Hergé sort of Tintin, Land of Black Gold. There's a whole bunch of it's that kind of feeling of adventure and then traveling from one location to another, and the intrigue as well. No, I really enjoyed it.